The message from Emily's good friend hit her like a freight train.
Emily, something terrible has happened. James is here, and so is Emma.
3 years after graduation, the class president had organized a reunion. Emily couldn't miss it, but she never expected to face the two people who had betrayed her.
James and Emma here? Unbelievable.
James, her ex-boyfriend, had been with her since college. They survived the post-graduation breakup season, but 3 months ago, she discovered his involvement with her good roommate, Emma. Even her new luxury dress couldn't lift her spirits.
This calls for a dramatic entrance. There's a companion street nearby.
Emily headed straight for the companion street, which was bustling with people. Finding quality was challenging, but then she saw him, a handsome guy in casual clothes, walking like he was on a runway. He was superior to James in every way.
You'll do. Name your price, and if you perform well, I'll tip you.
The man seemed taken aback, but then he took the lead, holding her hand firmly. Despite having been in a relationship before, Emily found herself blushing.
He really gets into character quickly. I mustn't lose face.
The man pulled her toward an incredibly cool, convertible sports car.
The latest RH series sports car? Starting at $1 million. Impressive, even the car is rented?
She got in without hesitation. The man chuckled softly, and his gaze felt oddly familiar. For a moment, she felt like they knew each other.
As long as you like it.
His sultry voice sent a shiver down her spine. She realized she was being flirted with by a paid companion. Soon, they arrived at the restaurant entrance. Before she could get out, she received a call from her ex-boyfriend, James.
The Imperial Hotel is the most luxurious hotel in the city. Not just anyone can get in. Remember to mention my name to the security when you enter, or you'll be stopped outside, and I'd feel bad for you.
The unspoken arrogance and show-off attitude made me feel stifled. I tightened my grip and angrily hung up the phone.
What's he showing off for?
I muttered, getting out of the car in frustration. James was disgusting. Even with a new lover, he hadn't forgotten about me, his old flame. He would seize any opportunity to provoke me, making me doubt my judgment in the past. Sure enough, the security at the Imperial Hotel stopped me at the entrance. Before I could say anything, Alexander stepped forward.
Welcome, sir!
The security guard's eyes lit up. He raised his hand, and the guard excitedly stepped aside to let us in. I raised an eyebrow. What kind of act was this?
We're familiar here, regulars?
Yes, we are.
So that's it. He's so handsome, I guess many people hire him. It's not surprising in such settings, so I understood.
The quality of paid boyfriends is really high these days.
I couldn't help but mutter, pulling him inside. Next, it was the most critical moment. Unexpectedly, we ran into James, who was coming out to show off.
Emily.
He glanced at Alexander behind me, his face darkening, and pulled me aside. I shook him off in disgust.
Emily, I know you still love me. What's the point of getting a pretty boy to make me jealous? I've already told you, I'm destined to be with Emma, but the one I love will always be you.
In other words, he couldn't let go of Emma, the rich second generation who could help him rise, but he still wanted to have an affair with me. What a shameless man! His blatant audacity was truly unparalleled. I resisted the urge to hit him, planning to give him a fatal blow later to vent my anger.
James, stop dreaming. I will never be with you.
Not with me, but with that pretty boy?
James suddenly got agitated and grabbed my arm. The next second, Emma rushed over.
Emily, you shameless woman! How dare you seduce my boyfriend?
Just when I thought I would get a solid slap, Alexander grabbed Emma's wrist.
How dare you hit my girlfriend? Who do you think you are?
I was stunned, looking at Alexander, who appeared like a deity. I secretly gave him a big thumbs up in my heart. Indeed, he's very professional. Awesome. Then I proudly raised my chin and took the opportunity to give Emma a hard slap. The slap made Emma stagger back several steps, screaming shrilly. Her scream attracted many classmates. They stood not far away, chattering.
Emily, I've told you, we're over. I understand if you can't let go, but please don't disturb my new life.
The mocking gazes of the surrounding classmates fell on me. It made me feel both embarrassed and furious. At this moment, a coat was draped over my shoulders. It was Alexander.
Hello everyone, I'm Alexander, Emily's boyfriend.
The moment he stepped forward, I could feel all eyes in the room focusing on him. Many girls were staring at him in a daze. James looked worthless in front of him. James's earlier show-off instantly became a slap in his own face.
If it weren't for you breaking up with me, I might have missed such a perfect boyfriend.
Seeing James and Emma's expressions as if they had eaten something disgusting, I was overjoyed. Throughout the dinner, Alexander perfectly played the role of a full-score boyfriend. In the middle, I saw Emma go to the restroom, and James actually came over again.
Emily, let's talk.
His eyes fell on Alexander, obviously wanting him to leave.
Alexander is not an outsider. You can say it directly.
I seemed to feel the man, who had been at ease all along, stiffen for a moment.
Emily, I know you're doing this to make me angry.
James clenched his fists, then softened his voice. I sneered, glancing at him.
James, aren't you disgusting? Was it me who stripped you and Emma and pressed you onto the bed 3 months ago?
No, Emily, listen to me. I didn't expect Emma's dad to be my boss. I couldn't offend her at that time.
Oh, so you just decided to sell yourself?
I laughed mockingly.
Emily, don't make it sound so bad. We've been together for so many years. I do have feelings for you.
A wave of nausea surged up.
Ugh, stop it. You may not have any shame, but I find it disgusting.
Did he really think I didn't know? The most important design project he had, I helped him with most of it because I saw how hard he was working. Now the client liked it, but it needed some modifications, and he had no idea how to do it. He probably had no choice but to come to me. Alexander pulled me into his arms, turning me around to protect me behind him.
An ex should stay buried in the past. Popping up like a ghost is both scary and impolite.
From start to finish, his voice was very calm and composed. In stark contrast to James's ugly expression. At this moment, Emma returned. I don't know what she said, but James kept looking at me, wanting to speak but hesitating. I glanced at the message I had just received. It turned out that the partner needed a design proposal, and James had been unable to deliver. Emma's father was furious, and now James had to rush back and grovel like a dog to his future father-in-law. I stood up before him.
Classmates, let's meet again another day. We will leave now.
Having achieved my goal, there was no need to stay. I stood up and deliberately bumped into James as I dragged Alexander away. James opened his mouth to say something, only to see Emma slap him across the face.
James! Are you still hung up on her?
As the door closed, I saw through the crack that James was being slapped around like a fool, his dignity shattered.
Serves you right.
That jerk, when he was with me, I treated him like a king. Now, in Emma's eyes, he's just a dog to be scolded and beaten. But my eyes still reddened, tears streaming down. It wasn't for him, it was for myself, for my wasted youth. On the way home, the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Feeling stifled and uncomfortable, I waved my hand and had Alexander take me to a bar. In the end, I didn't even know how I got home.
Sis, let me help you to your bedroom.
A deep voice sounded in my ear, warm breath tickling my ear. My vision was blurry, and I could only see something red and jelly-like in front of me.
Jelly? It looks delicious.
I couldn't help but take a bite, feeling its bouncy texture. The next moment, I was pushed away. A slightly breathless voice sounded in my ear.
Sis, stop messing around.
I was completely dazed, not realizing I was gripping his collar tightly. The collar snapped open. Alexander's expression was restrained, and my hands roamed over him.
Sis, if you keep this up, I won't be polite.
What did you say?
The next moment, I completely passed out. The next morning, I woke up with a headache. I stared at the ceiling in a daze for a long time before the memories of yesterday slowly returned.
Wait, if my last memory is correct, isn't that paid boyfriend still in my house?
I sat up abruptly, just as there was a knock on the door.
Sis, breakfast is ready. Please hurry.
His voice wasn't particularly gentle, even somewhat cool. But the tenderness in his tone was enough to drown someone, making that sis sound like it had another meaning. I dawdled but eventually made it to the dining room. Alexander was wearing a crisp white shirt, his eyes filled with a smile. A table full of steaming breakfast awaited. I pretended to sit down calmly.
Your cooking skills are quite good. You really put effort into this job.
Thank you.
I hesitated but couldn't help bringing up the matter of changing clothes.
About that, sis, you were sleeping very uncomfortably last night, so
He propped his chin with one hand, tilting his head slightly, his eyes full of amusement. Before he could finish, I already felt my cheeks burning.
So I just did as you said and gave you the nightgown. You changed yourself.
I vaguely remembered and sighed in relief.
But now that I think about it, I was a bit unprofessional. I should have helped you change, right?
No need.
I was so scared I choked on my porridge.
Take it slow, sis. If you like, I can make breakfast for you every day.
His hand gently patted my back, very tenderly. But I was fully awake now. He was just a paid boyfriend, after all. His goal was money. Why was I getting so worked up? For some reason, I felt a bit lost and irritated.
I can't afford to pay you every day. By the way, you did well yesterday, so let's settle the bill.
I pretended to be indifferent, taking out my phone. Alexander blinked. Clearly a high-cold, abstinent man, he now seemed a bit cute.
Sis, my rates aren't cheap.
Tell me.
Such a high-quality paid boyfriend, even if it cost thousands, would be worth it. The little person in my heart was already crying over the soon-to-be-gone money.
Well, generally, paid boyfriends charge between $200 to $500 a day.
I breathed a sigh of relief, even thinking that maybe I could hire him for a day or two in the future. I quickly shook my head, dismissing the strange thought.
But when did I ever say I was a paid boyfriend?
What?
With a numb expression, I watched the convertible, which I had mistaken for a prop, drive away, feeling utterly hopeless.
Emily, had hired a paid boyfriend for the first time in my life. And I ended up on an unbelievably absurd path. That's right, Alexander wasn't a paid boyfriend at all.
Looking at the photo on the financial news channel on my phone, the young and handsome man had a cold expression.
Wasn't he the president of the renowned Huading Enterprises? I had randomly picked a president off the street to be my boyfriend. Even TV dramas wouldn't dare to script this.
My gosh. This is too dramatic. Even novels don't write such things.
Emily, that was definitely the boyfriend you rented, right?
A familiar and annoying voice came from beside me. Turning my head, it was indeed James again. My heart was instantly filled with annoyance. I couldn't be bothered to look at him, so I turned my head and walked away.
Emily, I knew you still had feelings for me. That paid boyfriend of yours is really good quality. You almost had me fooled.
James quickly walked in front of me and grabbed my elbow. His grip hurt a bit, so I shook him off.
He's not a paid boyfriend.
I casually explained, not intending to say more, just wanting to leave quickly.
Ha, Emily, you're still being stubborn. That convertible is the latest RH series, starting at $1 million. Such a young man, that car must be rented.
I felt even more desperate. How could this self-righteous guy be so disgusting? How blind was I to have liked him before?
Emily, please reconsider what I said yesterday. I truly like you.
James's expression of deep affection made me feel even more disgusted. My mind was filled with Alexander's last words, and I walked away directly.
Why would someone so wealthy cooperate with me like that? Aren't rich people supposed to deal with hundreds of thousands in minutes?
I looked up Alexander's information, feeling more and more overwhelmed. Just because he said, "Sister, if you can't give me a suitable price, then just give yourself to me."
I have to admit, I was a bit moved for a moment. But how could such a wealthy and handsome man really want me to be his girlfriend? It must be just for fun.
Having just gone through a failed relationship, I was physically and mentally exhausted and had no interest in casual relationships.
With so many wealthy and beautiful women eyeing him, even talking to him might get me schemed against.
Thinking of that terrifying scenario, I decided it was better to come up with a suitable price. For several days, I had no clue.
Emily, you're amazing. Do you know who Alexander is? He's a graduate of our school this year and the new president of Shingding Enterprises. The game he designed is famous nationwide, even worldwide. I'm playing it now. Can you ask him for me how to pass the second level? I'm pulling my hair out.
If you had reminded me a few days earlier, I wouldn't be in this mess.
After work that day, I saw a crowd gathered downstairs. With a casual glance, I saw candles and flowers on the ground. Was someone about to confess? Excitedly, I joined the crowd, only to see the person in the middle. James.
Why couldn't this guy just disappear? I had a bad feeling, and the next moment, he saw me.
Emily!
Everyone turned to look at me. My scalp tingled, and I wanted to run.
Emily, I was wrong. Please give me another chance. I will treat you well.
The crowd had blocked the way, making it impossible to leave. James walked over with a large bouquet of roses.
We're already over.
I spoke coldly, wanting to save him some face for the sake of our years together. This despicable man only knew how to use people. Seeing his anxious expression, I knew that design project must be urgent.
Emily, is it because of that man that you left me?
What?
I was confused.
I saw you get out of that man's convertible that day.
James looked pained, and I suddenly realized what he was trying to do.
Emily, please wait for me. I will earn more money to buy you what you want. Don't leave me.
At this point, the way people looked at me had completely changed. What could I say? Should I say that he was a passerby I mistook for a paid boyfriend? There was no way to explain. James had said it on purpose. Suddenly, the screech of brakes echoed beside her. A luxury car, clearly expensive, stopped next to her. Her heart skipped a beat.
Could it be Alexander?
The car door opened, and two bodyguard-like men walked up to her, bowing respectfully.
Miss, the master says you've had enough fun. It's time to go home and inherit the family fortune.
The crowd around them buzzed with excitement, even James was stunned.
All right, Dad knows me best. Let's go.
Feeling like she was towering at 2.8 meters tall, Emily entered the car without a glance at James. As the car drove away, Emily breathed a sigh of relief.
By the way, who arranged this excellent service for me?
Miss Emily, it was Mr. Alexander who arranged it.
Emily's smile froze. The car stopped in front of a luxurious restaurant, the same place where her classmates were having a reunion dinner.
So, why bring me here?
Through the glass, she saw Alexander in the lobby. She forced a smile and walked in.
Glad you could make it, Emily.
To her surprise, Alexander didn't mention the paid boyfriend. Instead, he ordered a table full of dishes and had lunch with her.
If he bothers you again, just call me.
But, Alexander, you've already helped me a lot today.
Just call me Alexander.
Okay, Alexander. You've already helped me a lot today. I can handle the rest myself.
How will you handle it? Find another paid boyfriend?
Emily was speechless. Indeed, only by proving she had a real boyfriend could she make James give up.
Emily, I never.
Mr. Alexander! I'm sorry, I didn't know she was your companion.
The security guard immediately bowed to Alexander. His attitude towards me took a complete 180-degree turn. Emma was completely stunned.
Mr. Alexander?
Alexander didn't even glance at her. Instead, he pulled me into his embrace.
My event doesn't allow people without manners to attend.
Yes. It's our fault. We'll handle it right away.
With that, the security guard grabbed Emma and started dragging her out.
Wait! Wait! You can't do this to me! Do you know who my father is?
Emma shouted, becoming the laughingstock of the scene. With the annoying person gone, I realized that I was actually nestled in Alexander's arms in front of so many people.
Mr. Alexander, is your girlfriend the same as Emily who handled the HQ case?
A middle-aged man looked at me and suddenly spoke. I recognized him immediately. A year ago, our company had a problematic collaboration with a large corporation. Our company's capabilities were somewhat lacking. As a rookie who had just joined for 2 years, I boldly took action and turned the situation around. That case was the reason for my rapid promotion. This man was the boss of the collaborating company at the time and had even tried to poach me. The people around seemed to have been reminded, and one by one, they started praising me. Could it be because of Alexander's influence? I was a bit puzzled.
I'm ashamed to say, I had recommended Ms. Emily to you before, not knowing she was your girlfriend.
The boss chuckled, but there was a different look in his eyes. Clearly, he thought my abilities were actually Alexander's doing. I felt a bit annoyed, frustrated that my abilities weren't being recognized. Alexander seemed to know what I was thinking. I felt his arm tighten around me.
Emily is my senior, but she never knew of my existence. It was only recently that I had the chance to catch her attention.
As soon as he said this, everyone around couldn't help but gasp. A genius of Alexander's stature actually admired me. Instantly, many people looked at me with renewed respect for my abilities.
Did you say what you did at the banquet today just to help me out?
On the way back, for some reason, I suddenly asked. Alexander closed his eyes.
No, I've known you since I started school.
Started school? I thought hard but couldn't remember ever meeting him. However, I could understand his help. I was quite prominent in university, a bit of a star. It's not surprising that a junior would be dazzled by my reputation. No wonder he helped me.
Well, since we're both alumni, about the paid boyfriend thing.
Have you already thought of how to make it up to me?
He suddenly opened his eyes. In the dim car, his eyes seemed to glow, as if expecting something.
Since we're alumni, and you don't seem to lack money, how about I owe you a favor? If you ever need help with a case, I'll help you for free once. How about that?
I felt my face flush after saying that. With a company like his, how could they lack talent? His face turned cold.
That's not enough. I have a better idea.
What?
Why don't you really be my girlfriend?
And then, that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep.
Emily, you lied to me. You're not some rich heiress at all.
James gritted his teeth as he looked at me. His reaction wasn't surprising. After all, he dumped Emma as soon as he thought I was a wealthy heiress.
I never said I was a rich heiress. Now that he knew my boyfriend was Alexander, the big CEO, he wouldn't continue to pester me, right?
Who would have thought, after a moment of silence, he looked at me with a face full of restraint.
Emily, I know you're not that kind of person. I'm really struggling right now. Can you lend me $200,000?
You know I'm not an heiress, yet you still ask me for money? Where would I get that kind of money?
Alexander has money. You can ask him.
James, do you have any shame? Asking your ex-girlfriend to get money from her current boyfriend for you?
Emily, it's okay. I know you still love me. You're just with that guy to spite me. Help me through this tough time, and you can leave him and be with me.
Dude, are you okay? Alexander is handsome, rich, taller, and more gentle and considerate than you. I'd have to be out of my mind to be with you.
A familiar voice, laced with amusement.
Sis, I didn't expect you to think so highly of me.
I didn't know when Alexander had appeared.
It's just money. Don't get too cocky.
Alexander's expression turned cold as he looked at him.
I'll be waiting.
How did James dare?
Ahem, Alexander, he's not right in the head. Why are you even talking to him?
Yes, I had accepted his proposal to be his girlfriend. After thinking it over, maybe this rich young master was just tired of the high life and wanted to try something simpler with me. Maybe he'd get bored soon, and I could just enjoy a high-quality relationship for a while. No need to overthink it.
With wolves circling outside, of course, I have to stick close to you, sis.
Alexander, usually so aloof, turned into a clingy, affectionate puppy around me.
Sis, what do you want to eat tonight? Let's go grocery shopping.
A few days later, I answered an unknown number, only to find it was James again.
Angry, James, are you done bothering me?
Angry, Emily, I'm giving you one last chance to come back to me.
Angry, are you out of your mind?
I hung up immediately and blocked the number. When I got home, it was unusual to find Alexander not there. Usually, even though Alexander was a CEO, he would always get home before me to buy groceries and cook dinner. Ever since I agreed to be his girlfriend, he had shamelessly become my live-in boyfriend. I turned on the TV, and it was on the financial news channel. The news was about Alexander's company. Reportedly, Alexander, the CEO of Huading Enterprises, is not actually from a wealthy family. Currently facing a financial crisis. Stock prices plummeting. The overwhelming information left me dizzy. Previously, Alexander had become a CEO at a young age, thanks to the backing of a powerful family. Now, for some reason, it was revealed that he wasn't from a wealthy family at all. This caused the major shareholders to panic. Moreover, a critical project had encountered problems, leading to severe doubts about Alexander. For some reason, I suddenly thought of the call from James. The news had just been broadcast, but James seemed to have known about it in advance. After some hesitation, I called Alexander, but he didn't answer. So, I called James. At the restaurant, James had transformed from his previous despondency into someone brimming with confidence.
Unfriendly, surprised? The wealthy husband you found turns out to be a fraud.
Serious, I'll say it again, I didn't choose him because of his money.
Unfriendly, forget it, we have different values. There's no point in explaining to you.
Serious, what do you know about this matter?
Unfriendly, actually, Alexander is quite capable. If that project hadn't gone wrong, he would still be the high-flying genius CEO.
That project involved chips, with enormous profits and many complexities. What role could a small fry like James play? I felt disappointed, realizing he was just a clown kicking someone when they were down. I picked up my bag and turned to leave.
Unfriendly, don't you want to know who leaked his meticulously crafted plan?
I paused. That project contained a lot of crucial data, which he had mentioned to me. I had even glanced at it.
Shouting, that's right, it was you, Emily, haha.
James laughed maniacally. I then realized that James had been hired by Alexander's rival. His previous efforts to get close to me were all part of a scheme to appear as an ordinary guy. In reality, it was to lower my guard, and someone had installed special equipment on my phone. Confidential information had been leaked bit by bit.
Angry, that's illegal.
A heavy sense of guilt overwhelmed me. Alexander had helped me so much, and I turned out to be the one who pushed him into a desperate situation.
Unfriendly, do whatever you want, you have no evidence. The most important thing now is that it doesn't matter anymore. 300 million in liquid funds needs to be raised within a week. Just wait for your little boyfriend to end up behind bars.
I watched his back, lifting my head slightly. I noticed a camera hidden in the corner, obscured by plants. The latest model, full color with audio recording. I smiled slightly and walked towards the waiter.
Friendly, hello, I'd like to speak to the owner of your establishment.
When I got home, Alexander was wearing an apron, cooking. I couldn't help but hug him from behind.
How have you been lately?
He paused slightly, his voice still as gentle as ever.
I'm fine. You don't need to worry about anything.
A wave of sadness washed over me. Even though he was younger than me, he always stood in front of me whenever there was a problem. As he placed the dishes on the table, he looked at me with a hint of guilt in his eyes.
You won't be mad at me for deceiving you, will you?
I knew what he was referring to and quickly shook my head.
Of course not. Besides, you never told me you were from a wealthy family.
Sigh, I didn't expect it either. I just hired a paid boyfriend, and it turned out to be so expensive that I got myself involved.
What can I do? I'll just have to pay off the debt honestly.
Suddenly, his eyes sparkled with laughter.
You're still so kind to me, sister. Don't worry, I'll handle it.
I believe in you.
After dinner, I handed him the USB drive. Sure enough, the next day, James and his associates were taken to court. I knew this was just a small problem solved. The more important issue was the financial loss. Where would we get so much liquid capital?
Daughter, I heard you're dating someone. Why don't you bring your boyfriend home for us to meet?
When I received Mom's call, I immediately had an idea. Alexander had been so busy lately. Bringing him home for a meal would be a way for him to relax. I never expected to see an unexpected person when I opened the door.
James? What are you doing at my house?
I looked at him with a hostile expression. Mom came out with a spatula and immediately understood when she saw Alexander behind me.
Emily, you're back. I saw this was your classmate, so I let him in. Hey, James. Emily brought her boyfriend home today. So Annie won't entertain you. You should leave.
Without another word, she directly escorted James out. It seemed Mom didn't know what James had done. James walked into the kitchen naturally. During dinner, Mom kept talking about him. After dinner, James went to wash the dishes, and I couldn't help but pull Mom aside for a private conversation.
Mom, didn't you used to be quite satisfied with James? What's going on now?
James? He's nothing. When you were dating him, your dad and I didn't agree, but we were afraid you'd rebel. So one of us had to play the bad cop, and the other the good cop.
Mom glared at me and poked my forehead with her finger.
Now it's good. You've finally brought home a reliable man.
By the way, why does he look so familiar?
I stammered, saying we'd talk when Dad got home.
So, you really are Alexander from Shingding?
Mom and Dad were both shocked. Alexander, who was always cold to outsiders, was very obedient at this moment.
Uncle, Auntie, I'm sorry for the trouble. Recently, I've encountered some small issues, but don't worry, I won't drag Emily into it.
Look at what you're saying.
Mom and Dad exchanged a glance.
Well, Emily should have told us earlier. Here, take this. It's the rent we've collected over the past few months.
Alexander was slightly taken aback. I immediately beamed with joy.
Thank you, Mom and Dad. We'll be leaving now.
After chatting for a while, Alexander and I left. To my surprise, James was still downstairs.
Angry, Emily, you're ruthless. When he becomes penniless, my boss has plenty of ways to make a comeback. Don't regret it then.
James spat out these words and left. A couple of days later, James and his big boss showed up at a high-level meeting. And this time, I was there too.
Serious, Mr. Alexander, we understand this was an accident, but the most important thing now is to quickly fill the project gap.
A major shareholder spoke earnestly, his eyes constantly darting towards James.
Hopeful, why don't we cooperate with the Xia Group? We might earn less profit, but at least we can save Shingding.
Calm, if it's a funding issue, you all don't need to worry.
Alexander's voice was calm, not even glancing at the provocatively staring James. With a few swift moves, someone soon distributed the documents.
Shouting, how is this possible? 300 million in liquid assets, how could you have that?
But his boss, after making a few phone calls, looked directly at me with pinpoint accuracy.
Unfriendly, Mr. Alexander is indeed lucky, starting from scratch and succeeding in one go, even having a girlfriend to help during a crisis.
James was dumbfounded, staring at me.
Unfriendly, impossible. Emily, you're just an ordinary person. You're not some heiress, how could you?
Cheerful, I'm indeed not an heiress. My family just bought a few apartment complexes early on, all over the country, and we just collect rent or something. How could that count as being an heiress?
Yes, my family is actually quite wealthy. But perhaps due to the landlord tradition, my parents, along with some of their landlord friends, are all very down-to-earth. I was also raised as an ordinary child, at most with a bit more exposure. Naturally, I'm different from those traditional heiresses cultivated by wealthy families. The matter ended perfectly. With these funds, Shangding got through the crisis, and James and his boss couldn't escape. As for me? After Shengding successfully secured the project, Alexander proposed to me with all his shares. We are on a plane, preparing to meet his parents this time. I couldn't help but feel a bit nervous.
Friendly, don't worry, my parents will definitely like you.
Yes, they will indeed like me. I watched as the car drove towards an increasingly familiar direction, expressionless.
Cheerful, young master, we've arrived.
Seeing Alexander smilingly open the door for me, I glared at him fiercely. The mansion in front of me was extremely luxurious, like something out of a TV show about wealthy families. But that wasn't the most important thing.
Excited, oh, it's our little Emily. See, I told you, little Emily would definitely marry into our family someday.
The hostess was my godmother. My mom's best friend. Now, what else was unclear? Alexander and I were childhood friends, but because of an incident in middle school, I held a grudge against him, and their family moved away due to business changes. Later, I refused to see him no matter what. Actually, from the first time Alexander saw me, my parents knew everything was orchestrated by them.
Hopeful Emily, don't blame little Alexander. You were the one who made harsh remarks back then. To save your face, we had to put on this act.
Seeing my parents, who always talked about collecting rent, happily coming out of the villa, I shot them another glare. In middle school, I had a crush on a boy who was Alexander's friend. I asked my good friend Alexander to deliver a love letter for me, but he told me the boy rejected me. Heartbroken, I cried for 3 days and nights. Until the boy confessed to me before going abroad, I found out he liked me too. It turned out Alexander had lost my love letter, causing us to miss each other. I was so angry that I beat Alexander up and refused to talk to him ever again. As I grew older, I realized Alexander lost the letter because I had suddenly acted capriciously. I had asked Alexander, who disliked crowds, to help me buy skewers from a crowded snack shop, and he lost the letter in the process. Seeing me cry so sadly, and hearing the boy mention liking another girl, Alexander didn't tell me the truth to spare my feelings.
Relieved, luckily, we didn't miss out.
I murmured to myself.
Sleepy, dear wife.
Half asleep beside me, Alexander pulled me into his arms and fell back asleep. Looking at his sleeping face, I felt grateful once again. The quarrels of our youth didn't ultimately separate us. Perhaps more importantly, there was always someone who never gave up.